Welcome back, Defenders. This first story might not seem like a lot, but to the people of Ukraine, this is a big deal. Antonov cargo planes spotted flying over Kyiv for the first time since 2022. For the last 3.5 years, the skies over Ukraine have been closed. You might see an occasional military helicopter or jet, but not a cargo plane. So when this plane took off over the capital city of Kyiv, the residents were confused and they started filming it.
Что? Это норма?
А ты ж видел? Это хотели открыть. Это же но не на Киев. А де Київ?
А у нас що, цей повітряний простір відкрили, чи що? Я не понял.
Смотри, это самолет.
As you can see, there's video from several different angles. People were confused. So what was this? This is a Ukrainian Antonov AN-124. This plane has been stuck in the capital city of Kyiv since February of 2022. The heavy transport was surviving countless air raids on the city of Kyiv and had to undergo extensive repairs and certification before conducting this operation in the middle of this full-scale war. Russian channels are furious over this event, not only because of the symbolism of the operation, but also due to the fact that this AN-124 hasn't been destroyed in 3.5 years. Somehow, the Ukrainians were keeping it safe, they repaired it, they then successfully got it out of the country. This is a heavy transport aircraft, meaning they're going to use it to help bring in additional weapons to support Ukraine. So this is symbolic for the Ukrainians and embarrassing for the Russians, yet again. That was the good news. Here's the bad news. These air attacks continue. This was the night of the 12th, 623 missiles and drones. And there's something about this graphic that I did not understand that President Zelensky has revealed. President Zelensky stated yesterday, they also use hundreds of special Shahed imitator drones in each strike, the purpose of which is to overwhelm air defense and impede the downing of Shaheds. This is their deliberate and vile terror. So yes, Russia launched 623 drones and missiles, but how many of them were decoys, dummies? Potentially only 319 were actually Shaheds with explosives. The others were designed to waste resources, confuse air systems, distract crews, and allow their missiles and drones to be more successful. This is still bad, but it's not 600, 700, 800 a night bad. The Russians are faking it. They can't actually produce this many, or they don't want to use this many Shaheds in a single night, so they're launching decoys, dummy drones, in these massive nightly attacks. And perhaps it works. Perhaps Ukraine's air defense crews are overwhelmed, and this helps missiles and drones hit their targets. At least 13 killed, 46 injured in a Russian attack across Ukraine the past day. Russia hits maternity hospital in Kharkiv, nearly a dozen injured. A maternity hospital. Again. This is what President Zelensky has to say. I'm going to read this. Russian strikes on our people. Yet another atrocity. In Kharkiv, 9 people were injured as a result of a drone attack. Among the wounded are women in a maternity hospital, mothers with newborns, women recovering from surgery. Fortunately, no children were injured. Russia is targeting life itself, even in the very places where it begins. Overnight, strikes also hit the Dnipro, Mykolaiv, and Sumy regions. In the morning, the Odessa region was attacked. Now they launched new waves again. For the experience, I saw this clip from a Ukrainian account titled IPA, and this is her taking her dog for a walk in the city of Lviv during a Russian missile attack.
Hello everyone from Lviv, Ukraine.
This is a horrible way to live your life. For the millions of Ukrainians, this is every single night. But there's good news. This is the Twitter account Tataragami. He's a former Ukrainian officer. I'm hearing positive reports from the ground regarding Ukraine's use of loitering munitions to counter Shahed drones, with promising trends. Hopefully, Ukraine may soon demonstrate results that could reshape perceptions of the overall effectiveness of mass drone campaigns. It's still too early to celebrate, of course, but if Russia is pouring over 100 million a month into drones that Ukraine can shoot down for half that cost, it could mean real relief for civilians, the people who have been suffering the most from these attacks. Russia is only doing these massive nightly attacks because they think it economically benefits them, in that if Ukraine has to spend more resources, more manpower, and more money to shoot down all these drones, then it's profitable for Russia to keep doing it. But if Ukraine can produce a cheaper intercept drone, cheaper than a Russian Shahed, well then the economics flip and it's more expensive for Russia to do these nightly attacks that might not even be successful. So here's a picture that appeared on social media. I don't know if this is accurate or this is what one of these Ukrainian interceptor drones will look like. But it has to be cheaper than a Russian Shahed. It's smaller, it doesn't have to go a long distance, and it doesn't need a large payload. So here's a video showing what one of these interceptor drones looks like when it hits a Shahed, and it just stays on the ground or loiters in the air. It needs like a radar signal to latch onto. And then as soon as the Shahed gets a proximity alert, it takes off and slams into it, hopefully neutralizing the Shahed. So these interceptor drones just have to be cheaper. And if they're proven to be cheaper, then Russia knows this is now a losing strategy, and hopefully they'll stop. That doesn't stop ballistic or cruise missiles, but if it's just missiles, Ukraine's air defense systems should be able to handle them. There's also this. Impeccable results. New Skynex video shows Ukrainian forces destroying Russian drones with a German gun. I'll play a little bit of this clip. I'll link it down below if you want to see the full demonstration. But this is a German Rheinmetall Skynex air defense cannon shooting 35mm advanced hit efficiency and destruction rounds with proximity fuses. This is a bit more expensive than a proximity drone, but if Ukraine needs hundreds of these guns protecting their cities and factories, then Rheinmetall and the Germans gotta help out. We have to find the funding to get the technology into the country to make these massive nightly drone attacks for the Russians ineffective. This is good news. Aid shipments have been restored according to President Zelensky. 2 weeks ago, Pete Hegseth and Elbridge Colby halted weapons deliveries to Ukraine. Trump didn't even know about it. As soon as Trump was explained what happened, he reversed the decision. He had a very nice phone call with President Zelensky almost a week ago. And this is what President Zelensky is saying. We have received political signals at the highest level, good signals, including from the United States, from our European friends. According to all reports, aid shipments have been restored. And it's gonna get better. This is really kind of difficult for me to say, and even more difficult for me to believe, but I'm going to read these headlines. You'll be seeing things happen. Trump warns Putin after hospital strike in Kharkiv. The US president has signaled he will take a tougher line with Moscow after it rejected his peace mediation efforts and escalated attacks across Ukraine. Okay. Trump says major statement on Russia is coming on Monday, so I'm filming this Sunday. This is happening tomorrow. Very biting sanctions bill is in the works. This is the sanctions bill going through Congress, I think, this week. Trump considering sending new funds to Ukraine for the first time since taking office. This is according to CBS News. Trump to send weapons to Ukraine for first time via presidential powers. This is according to Reuters. Trump plans to sell weapons to NATO allies for transfer to Ukraine. This is according to Axios. So sources within the Pentagon and within the White House are telling everyone, every journalist in Washington, D.C., that Trump is about to do something big to benefit Ukraine. Trump's envoy Kellogg to visit Ukraine on July 14th amid military aid confusion. So Keith Kellogg is Trump's envoy to Ukraine, and he's going to be in the capital city for this announcement tomorrow with President Zelensky. And then I think this is pretty telling confirmation. NATO Secretary Rutte is going to Washington, D.C. to be with Trump at the White House for whatever announcement is coming on Monday. That's it. That's very encouraging. What's going to be the announcement? Germany and Norway are ready to buy 3 Patriot air defense systems for Ukraine, according to President Zelensky. So this is a political win for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been getting a lot of negative headlines, and we've been saying this. Sending military aid to Ukraine is a popular position with the American public. Between 60 and 70% of Americans support additional sanctions and additional military aid to Ukraine. So if Donald Trump is not happy with his polling numbers, this is an easy political win. Sell Patriot air defense systems to Europe, $1.5 billion each. This equals $4.5 billion for the American economy, for American taxpayers, for American workers. This has been a no-brainer for 6 months, but for some reason it took us 6 months to get here. Trump is going to start approving the sale of military equipment to whoever wants to buy it to help Ukraine defend themselves. And then there's Congress. U.S. Senate approves $500 million in security assistance for Ukraine. The Senate Armed Services Committee has voted to extend the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative through 2028, so that's another 3 years. But a supplemental package has yet to be requested by Trump. So this was just a committee that voted to do this, but Republicans have the majority on all these committees. They wouldn't have voted this way unless Donald Trump said it was okay. This is the big one. I don't know if Trump is going to announce this tomorrow, but this would be amazing if he did. According to CBS, Trump is considering confiscating $5 billion in frozen Russian assets to transfer to Ukraine. Trump also said there's about $3.8 billion left from the president's drawdown authority. I think this expires at the end of the fiscal year, so that's October 1st. And this is something that we just haven't done yet. The Europeans, the G7, the United States, for some reason, Russia's frozen assets have been off limits. We won't confiscate it to send military aid to Ukraine. But Trump doesn't really care about norms or precedents, and this is a lot of money. Trump likes money. So what Trump can do is he can seize this $5 billion of frozen Russian assets in American banks and then just give it to defense manufacturers. Give it to Raytheon, give it to Northrop Grumman, give it to Lockheed Martin to then send military equipment to Ukraine. This is a win-win-win for Donald Trump, the U.S. economy, and our NATO allies, Ukraine. We might actually do this. He's pretty upset. Moscow presented new approach on ending Russia-Ukraine war, Rubio says after talks with Lavrov. There was an ASEAN conference in Malaysia, and both Russia and the United States was represented there. So the Russian delegation and the American delegation had a meeting, and this was a pretty sad-looking meeting. And the first thing I noticed that makes me happy is Steve Witkoff is not there. Steve Witkoff is an idiot. I don't really like the guy, and he is not representing the United States in talks with the Russians anymore. It's just Marco Rubio, and I'm fine with that. I don't think Marco Rubio has any love or appreciation for the Russians. And this is what Marco Rubio said at this conference in Malaysia.
It's important to note that since January of this year, as an example, just to give you on the Russian side, they've lost 100,000 soldiers, dead. Not injured, I'm talking about dead. And on the Ukrainian side, the numbers are less, but still very significant. And so that's, the president doesn't like wars. He thinks wars are a waste of money and a waste of lives.
So Rubio chose to embarrass the Russians by saying that 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the last 6 months, not even counting captured and wounded. This made Margarita Simonyan, the head of RT News, very upset. The quote was, "Since January of 2025, Russia has lost 100,000 soldiers dead, not injured. And on the Ukrainian side, the numbers are less." She then says no bigger ritual humiliation for US diplomats than having to parrot Zelensky's nonsense numbers. And we are trying to take these people seriously. Do I believe that 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the last 6 months? And yes, I do. It's horrific. And this isn't my opinion. This is what Russian soldiers say whenever they can smuggle a smartphone into the war zone and film a video of themselves. This is a thread I saw just today from Chris O. Soldiers of the Russian 55th Separate Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade say that their unit is a conveyor belt of robbery, torture, and death. Commanders are said to be systematically extorting soldiers before sending them to die in meat assaults, even making them pay their commanders money to have a weapon when they charge on the battlefield. I see these videos every day of Russian soldiers screaming, crying out for help. They're not showing remorse about signing a contract. They're not showing remorse for attacking and killing Ukrainians. I don't have any sympathy for these guys. They're upset about the barbaric treatments they get from their chain of command. They don't feel like anyone in their chain of command cares if they live or die, because they don't care if these contract soldiers live or die. What is happening here? And Putin no longer cares what Trump thinks or says. Putin is betting that Ukraine will collapse and no one will stop him. Despite 6 phone calls and 2 rounds of direct talks, Russia continues choosing to escalate this war. Trump, the quote was last week, "We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us from Putin." So let's recap the last 6 months for fun. Donald Trump was willing to give the Russians the best peace deal imaginable. A terrible peace deal for Ukraine. Trump was willing to let Russia keep all territory they've taken so far. He was going to recognize that Crimea belongs to Russia forever. He was going to return all frozen assets. He was going to lift all sanctions. He was going to normalize all relations. There was going to be a hockey game between the United States and Russia. And the only thing that the Russians had to do was stop attacking. Stop killing people. And Putin said no. Putin rejected the deal. It's been 6 months. Trump's annoyed. We can be honest here, guys. Trump doesn't care about Ukraine. But Trump does care about his reputation. And there's other things in this world that Trump wants to be talking about, thinking about, and doing. It's been 6 months and Trump is annoyed. He tried to make friends with the Russians. He wanted to sign an aluminum deal or whatever. And the Russians don't want to be his friend. They don't want to do what he wants. They want their empire back. So the war carries on. I hope tomorrow is good news. I'll have an update video on Tuesday breaking down what's announced. In the meantime, let's get to the bad news for Russia. Explosions rock Russian drone and weapons plants after a 155 drone blitz. Ukraine does launch their own drones into Russia to destroy what they can. This is reports that 4 different military factories in Tula, Kronstadt, Tagarog, and Lagavatsky were all struck. Damage varies. We don't have good pictures and videos. Shahid-making MiG plant near Moscow was rocked by a drone attack. The compressor station at this factory was damaged. Elite Russian Marine Unit commander reportedly killed in a Ukrainian missile strike. This was the HIMARS strike on the 155th Brigade Command HQ in Kursk. We keep getting the details of which high-ranking officials were killed. So this guy's not a general, he's a colonel. I guess he was important to somebody, but now he's dead. Here's a story. Cadet kills his own commander, a special operation veteran. A major scandal has erupted at the Ryazan Airborne Forces Academy. A cadet has murdered his sergeant commander, a so-called hero of the war in Ukraine. What this guy did is he sabotaged his commander's parachute, both the main parachute and the backup, so that he would die after jumping out of a plane. A criminal investigation for premeditated murder was launched. On the same day, DNA samples were found that this cadet was responsible. He then confessed, saying that he deliberately sabotaged the parachute in retaliation for hazing and humiliation at the hands of this instructor. Yeah, I believe all of that. Hazing and humiliation is a huge problem, even at the academies, even for cadets. It's terrible. Ukraine hits Russian gas lifeline to arms plants, causing $76 million in damage. This was a gas pipeline that Ukraine struck, and if Trump is no longer going to hold Ukraine back, we can go back to striking refineries and depots. If Ukraine thinks it's in their best interests, I imagine they do. Russia weighs scrapping its only aircraft carrier after years of restoration delays. This is the famous Russian aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov. And this thing has been in dry dock for like 8 years, and it keeps catching on fire. They have been trying to restore it. About once a year, there's a report of a fire breaking out on board. Ukraine has nothing to do, I think, with sabotaging this. It's just the Russians are incompetent. And I think they're going to give up. I think they're going to give up on trying to fix this aircraft carrier. IEA raises doubts over Russia's ability to restore oil output. The International Energy Agency has cast fresh doubt on Russia's ability to sustain and restore its oil production capacity as output and export volumes continue to decline under the pressure of sanctions, waning investment, and the exit of Western energy firms. The article breaks down, but basically over the last year and a half, both Russia's oil production and their exports have been declining. This is a combination of factors, one being Western sanctions are working. 2, when Ukraine blows up depots and refineries, that tends to have an impact. If there's nowhere to store the oil, you have to pump less. So that is one component, but Russia was heavily dependent on Western companies, both for parts and expertise, and Russia's energy industry is no longer growing. It's contracting, and it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Russian grain exports plunged to a 17-year low. Russia's grain exports have dropped to their lowest level since 2008, as severe drought, sluggish prices, and a stronger ruble put mounting pressure on the country's agricultural sector. Your grain exports are weak, Russia. They're weak. Okay, let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Rome Recovery Conference delivers unprecedented $11 billion boost to Ukraine. This is great. Money is money, but there's a lot of countries eager to donate money to reconstruction funds when the war isn't over. We kind of need to win the war first, and then we can worry about funding reconstruction projects. But either way, thank you to all the countries that participated in this fund. Germany funded long-range weapons to arrive in Ukraine by late July, according to this German general. What kind of weapons? We don't know. But allegedly, big stuff from Germany is coming soon, and this general says this month. So, thank you so much, Germany. Germany to provide $47 million grant to support small and medium-sized Ukrainian businesses. Once again, thank you so much to the fantastic German people. Norway allocates $2.5 million towards Ukraine's cyber defense fund. Thank you so much to the Norwegians. Netherlands pledges $300 million for Ukraine's recovery projects amid Russia's aggression. Thank you so much to the fantastic Dutch. Final video is from friend of the channel, Richard Woodruff. I've shared lots of his clips. He is in charge of Frontline Kit. And this was 14 ambulances being provided by Germany arriving in the city of Lviv, and Richard attended the event.
I am standing with a load of guys from Chain Reaction that just cycled and drove 14 ambulances from Germany, from Munich, all the way here to Lviv, Ukraine. I just want to say thank you so much to the German people. Look at the huge, huge difference you're going to be making. They are now handing all of the keys over to the military, who's then going to take the vehicles from Lviv all the way to the front lines. So Chain Reaction, German people, you're doing a fucking incredible job. Дуже велике дякую, слава Україні.
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Thank you again to the people of Germany for these ambulances. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.